Hope you guys have had a good start to your week. It is Monday Morning Quarterback, episode 211. Tonight we're going to talk about shock pistons, why they're important in your shock, different styles, designs, etc. So that will be a segment coming up here in a minute. But before we jump in, we always like to answer questions from previous week's episodes. And we got one about the Knoxville episode we did probably 5 or 6 or so back. We talked about left front travel being super important, and one of the things that those crew chiefs of national teams, high limit outlaw teams are constantly checking as they're changing ride heights with tire changes and turns and fuel load, etc. And the question was, is that just a Knoxville thing? And it's really not. Those guys, no matter what track you're at, wing sprint car racing, left front travel is super critical to the balance of your car. It seems like, up to a certain extent, but it seems like that left front, it'll take whatever you'll give it. So if you have it set at 3 inches, it'll travel 3 inches. If you have it set at 3.5, it'll travel 3.5. So they're using a variety of things to control travel, whether it's mounting location on the car, whether it's a small bump rubber, whether it is a packer, but they're controlling that because if the left front travels too far, it can pull the right rear shock up and pull the right rear corner out of the track, losing right rear grip. So that's what they're trying to do there, is keep the left front from going down so far that the right rear comes up and out of the racetrack. And we'll see that again across all the different tracks. Half miles, obviously they don't want it to travel as far as on a little short track where you need it to travel farther to help the car roll around the corner. So like Path Valley last night, little bitty short track, they would have had more travel than they did the night before at Bridgeport, or certainly than they will at Williams Grove this weekend. So great question. Another question with that was about the internal springs. We're going to do a whole episode on that. So as I'm planning episodes for this off season, that's one of them that's definitely on the list because I've had a few questions. Another thing before we jump into tonight's topic, I get at least a few times a week somebody asking me for some type of setup advice, whether it's from a quarter midget to a sprint car. And the first thing I always ask them to do is send me a complete setup sheet. So to email me a complete setup sheet. And the reason I do that, I'm not dodging your question or trying to see what your setup is, but that's the best way for me to help you guys with any bit of advice. I kind of have to see the whole scope of the picture before I can just comment and say, oh, you're doing this, change your shock to that. Well, the shock might be set correctly, but maybe you're blocked out of the ordinary, or you got a corner height that's not quite normal. And if I can see all of those things, it really helps me identify if there's an outlier there that maybe should be addressed before a shock change or a wheel spacing change or whatever. So that's why I do that. So happy to help you guys with setup stuff, but have a full setup sheet ready to send to me, and the more details you have in that, the better. So just you know, basic wheel spacing and air pressure a lot of times isn't enough. Like block heights, corner heights, turns, if you scale your car, what those scale numbers are, all of that stuff is super important. So somebody who's not visually seeing your car go around the track can try to help you with that. So without further ado, here is tonight's video pertaining to shock pistons. Tonight we're going to dive into shock pistons, different designs, different styles, what to think about when designing a shock piston, potentially what to think about as a shock tuner when you're selecting what piston should go in a shock for a specific corner. I got a variety of pistons down here. These aren't all CSI pistons. I actually just went in our random piston drawer and grabbed out some different colors and shapes and sizes. I think we've got a JRI piston in here, some Penske pistons, an AFCO piston, a CSI piston. But wanted to show you, they come in a variety of shapes and sizes, and they're that way for a reason. So obviously the size of the piston is going to be indicative of what size shock body you have, and then different shapes within there. So whether you are, this is like a velocity dependent piston, right here we have a linear digressive piston. so it's going to create a digressive curve on one side. These are aluminum pistons. This AFCO piston is a steel piston. I've seen pistons come in tungsten, steel, aluminum, titanium, all different materials. Certain shock tuners believe that a heavier piston might be beneficial. We make all of our pistons out of aluminum. Easier to machine consistently. A lot of our pistons are 5-axis work. We have 5-axis machining capabilities, so we can do angle ports and all kinds of different things there. A couple things to keep in mind when you're designing a piston, and that is, obviously you have to design a piston around the shims that you're currently using, so you don't have to manufacture new shims unless you're wanting to do a whole new shock. So how that shim is going to sit on the piston, where it's going to be supported, right? So you can see, in addition to the 3 ports, this is a CSI piston, we have additional shim support, and we're doing that to try to prevent the shim from bending, as we talked in last week's video. So how the shim's going to be supported, and then how close to the edge of the port is the fluid going to flow. So you can see we have a little radius on that. That's going to allow that shim to open easier versus the ports being inboard more, which will make it a lot harder to open that shim. We do that on ours. A lot of our customers and the markets that we're in, we have to have really soft dampening. We're, 25, 30 pounds at 3 inches on micro stuff. And so if that port is inboard, we'd have to run an extremely thin shim, which would be more prone to bending. So another thing is the height of that port. So as that sealing shim goes and you're going in the compression direction, and fluid's going to flow in this port here into the compression shims, how tall that port is. The taller the port is, the more surface area there is for fluid to get down in there, and less restrictive. So some pistons have shorter ports than others. So all of those are things that your shock tuner should be considering when they're selecting what piston they want to use for what build. And a lot of that comes to what curve are they trying to get, how much dampening force are they trying to get, and then what piston is best selected to help them generate that curve. And then they're going to tune that curve based on the shims that they put in there. So as we mentioned, there's all kinds of different options, right? Typically each manufacturer is going to have a handful of different piston options for that size body that they're using. So a couple things to keep in mind there. The other thing would be the piston band. Right, this is a Penske, and it has a solid. We have a tongue and groove split band on ours, but there's different types of piston band material. Again, that goes into the shock tuner's hand. So just wanted to show you guys some of the different piston options. Again, if this video gets traction and you guys really like it, we'll go deeper and go on the shock dyno and show you this piston creates this curve and this piston creates that curve. I'm just trying to get a feel for what you guys are wanting to see as we start to take a deeper look into the internal workings of your shocks. All right, thank you guys for watching that. As always, please subscribe to our YouTube page and ring the bell for notifications. That's very helpful for us as we continue to bring these to you every week. I always appreciate people coming up to me at the racetrack saying that they're enjoying Monday Morning Quarterback. That makes sitting here and filming these every week worthwhile. So hope you all have a fantastic week, and look forward to seeing you at a racetrack here to close out the season.